Hello and welcome into Rebecca K Crochet. I am Becky, your yarn host, and today I am going to talk to you about how to crochet faster. I had a request on from one of my viewers, and she said, "How do you crochet fast?" Part of it is a lot of practice. Part of it, I'm going to go through some tips that I have for you. This is not all of the tips that I do, but this is just the ones off the top of my head that I can think about, that I wrote a list. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my list. And the first tip I'm going to tell you is you have to know your hooks. So with your yarn, so there's metal hooks. I have a bunch of different kinds. There are plastic hooks and there are wooden hooks. And I have thousands of hooks. These are just some of the ones I just grabbed off the top of my head, or within reach. So with your hooks, you have to know when to use your hooks. If you are crocheting with bamboo, you would want to use, or a slick yarn like Karen Simply Soft, or a very slick yarn, you want to use a wooden hook, something that has a little bit of grab on the hook, because that way your yarn does not slide off at the tip. It'll be easier to you'll grab your yarn so that your yarn doesn't slide off and then you're not having to reinsert your hook. If you are using cotton, absolutely no wood, because it is way too, the cotton's grabby, the wood is grabby, so you don't want to use a wood hook. You could use a plastic hook, but my preferred hook is a metal hook. Acrylic, I use a metal hook also. You can use a wood hook, but it's still a little bit grabby for acrylic. So you kind of need to know what slides helps your yarn to slide easier. The other thing is, I prefer, and this is preference because of the way I crochet, I prefer a short shaft. I prefer a hook that has a thumb, a flat spot for my thumb, because of the way I hold my hook like this. You could say I'm a knife holder, but I hold it, these fingers are just floating back here to just kind of guide my hook up and down. This finger is for my yarn going backwards and forwards, and I hold between my middle finger and my thumb. Now, the person that asked was my mom. She has a trigger finger. You can hold it with your ring finger if your trigger finger is curled like that, and use your yarn. It's going to be hard to do, but you can use your middle finger for your yarn to hold your yarn. That's another thing that you can, that's another way to hold your yarn. Instead of like this, you can hold it like this. Your hook may not be as sturdy, and whenever you are, when your finger's like this, but you're going in and you've got your finger up like this because you have the trigger finger, you can move this one back and forth and hold it with these two fingers, and then move this finger up and down. I hope that helps. The other thing is, you want a short shaft here. The shorter the movements, the easier it is and quicker it is for you to wrap the yarn around, go in and out. You know, you can go in and out of your stitches. If you watch my stitches, my movements are very short. These have a longer shaft than this one. The shaft on this one is from here to here. The shaft on this one, and especially this one, is extremely long. It goes from here to here, and you can see the difference in that shaft where that flat part is. This is your shaft right here. This is the throat of the hook and this is your shaft. You want that small if you're going to try to crochet fast. So the shorter the hook, the better. Now you also want to make sure that the hook fits your hand. Do you see the difference? The short, you don't want it to come up here and poke your hand like that. You don't want that to be resting there. So if you have a bigger hand, you want it to fit your hand. You don't really want it to come out the back side of your hand very much, because it'll catch on stuff. This side will catch on your project. Trust me, I know. Been there, done that. And like this one, if I hold it the way I want to hold this hook, which is the Furls knockoff, if I hold this one the way I want to, the shaft is too long. If I hold it in my hand, the hand fits, but the shaft, for me to crochet really fast, the shaft is way too long on this one. That's why you don't see me crocheting with this. Now, if I'm just relaxing and I'm crocheting just for the enjoyment of crochet and not trying to get a project knocked out, I use this hook. I like this hook. I like the head of this hook. That's the other thing you need to look at. I don't have any boy hooks here, or I do not like tapered hooks. I like the inline. This is as close to, where's my deal? This is as close to a tapered hook. I mean, a tapered hook as I'm gonna get. And it's still an inline hook. Even my wooden hooks, can you see that? My wooden hooks are even pretty much inline. Because a tapered hook, you're gonna have to do more twist with your hand. You're gonna have to, you're gonna go in sideways like this, but it's gonna be, I'll rotate it towards you. You're gonna go in sideways with this hook, and you're gonna pull it out sideways. When you have a tapered hook, you go in however you want to, but then you have to rotate it down and pull the hook out, because of this part of your hook sticks out from the neck of your hook. With an inline hook, you can crochet faster, and it's an in-out. No matter where you're holding your hook, you can go in and out really fast. That was the one thing that I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. Other thing is your stitches. If you want to crochet a very fast blanket, whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that your stitches are quick stitches. So if you have like double crochet, single crochet, half double crochet stitches all in a row, and you're just doing that repeatedly, that's going to go faster than if you have a patterned stitch. Even if it's double crochet, single crochet, you're going to go faster with one stitch per row versus, you know, like the moss stitch or the thicket stitch or any of those other stitches, or lacy stitches. The one exception to that, which is really, really fast, is if you are doing something like what people now are calling, I call it the open stitch, but a lot of people call it windows, where you're having a double crochet, chain one, double crochet, and you skip one in between. That stitch goes really well because you're not doing double crochets every time. Other than that, a single stitch is better than multiple stitches in a row, or multiple stitch repeats in a row. They're going to slow you down. And if you have like a 2-row repeat, say you're doing a granny square with a V-stitch, and you're doing the granny cluster on one row, and then you do the V-stitch on the next row, if you remember where you're at, that goes faster than just, you know, just multiple rows of different stitches. Just make sure that the pattern that you're using is easy to memorize. The other thing is on your stitches is you need to know what's coming up next. So if you read your pattern all the way through, or if you listen to the video all the way through, you kind of know where you're going to have to stop and start your stitches versus just trying to follow the pattern as you go. Now, the yarn is also very important. You want a yarn that will slide through your fingers really, really easily. So you don't want your yarn to be, if you're trying to crochet fast, you don't want to be doing a center pull. Not necessarily a center pull. You do not want to have it stiff. So you want to pull out a lot of your yarn before you start, and you don't want your yarn to get tangled up. I cake my yarn with a yarn winder. I prefer to do it, this is one whole skein like this. This and this is the same amount. This is just caked up. This is just still in the skein, not caked up. I prefer to pull it out of the center of my caked yarn, and that way I know I'm not going to have any knots. No knots, no, you know, it's prepared for me already. Because when you get that yarn puke that comes out of the middle, like I've shown yarn puke online before, when you get that, you're going to have to fight with the knots that are coming out with that yarn puke or yarn barf in the middle of your skein. You need to pull all of that out before you start crocheting if you want to crochet really, really fast. It's all going to take time. The larger the yarn, the quicker the project. So if you want to do a really fast project and you're using 3-weight and below, it is not going to be a very fast project. 4-weight is about a medium fast project. 5-weight, you're going to be faster. 6, you're going to be even faster. Super bulky. You're going to be really fast. It's going to give you a very fast project. I prefer not to use the bulky and the super bulky yarn, and that's just my preference because I like and I enjoy the crochet aspect of everything. The tools that you need to do this faster is the yarn winder, which I've already talked about, just strictly because you're not going to have to fight your yarn. And if you have a yarn winder, or if you don't and you prefer not to do a center pull, you can do one of these. I'll get it back here. You can do one of these that comes off, and how you do it is you get your yarn, and it can be this one, and you push it up in there and it will connect. A regular skein will connect and hold on that just fine. You can do that, and then you can it comes out so you don't have the yarn puke in the middle. You work up from the outside, or you can put this one on there. But this one, whenever you do that, you also work it from the outside, and it pulls. You take this part down, and it just goes in a circle. That's wonderful. If you don't want to purchase one of these, you can get any bowl. This happens to be my yarn bowl. They have them and I have some yarn bowls, but they're smaller than this one. They don't hold a cake. That have the etching out on the sides. This one's just a really thick bowl. I mean, it's heavy. That I have, and the reason I have it is because my cake sits down inside of it. So I can either pull from the center or I can pull from the outside, and I can just bring it through. And if you want it to be guided through something, there's those big file clips that they have that you can clip onto the outside. You run your yarn through the middle part of that clip, and that holds your yarn, and you can use any bowl. You don't have to go out and purchase a yarn bowl. I just liked this one, so I bought it. And it's heavy. This one's heavy enough that the yarn, if I've got little balls of yarn in here, the yarn is not going to flop my bowl over, which I had problems with the regular yarn bowls doing that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is your body posture. If you are not comfortable, if you are not, if you're hurting, if you get tired when you crochet, if you have your neck all tightened up and that kind of thing, then okay, on your body posture, if you're like getting really tight in your shoulders or your neck is hurting, your hands hurt. I hurt up here on my arm because I did this for so long. If you are starting to have pain, you need to stop. You need to stretch. You need to get up, and if your hands are hurting, there's exercises that you do like this where you push your fingers back like this to stretch them, and you'll feel it down in here also. And you know that you're stretching your hands really good. And I like to stretch my fingers out like this and, you know, push them together. And then, you know, you put your head down, you stretch your neck side to side, you drop your shoulders and do it. There's different ways to relax these shoulder muscles when you've been crocheting for a long time. But you need to sit with good posture. If you're sitting like me, sitting up. If you're sitting in a recliner, you don't want to be all balled up and tense and with your feet up, you know. You can have your feet up in the recliner. I do it all the time. But you don't want to, you know, you want to be relaxed. You don't want to be really tense, really upset when you crochet. I start crocheting that way, or I start thinking about crocheting, and I'll wind yarn before. If I'm mad or angry, I do not crochet. I will wind my yarn. I will get the yarn barf out. I start a project, but I don't sit down to crochet until I know I'm more relaxed, because it bothers your tension, and you also will not be crocheting very fast. You need to take short breaks. You need to make sure you drink plenty of water when you crochet, because I forget. I'm one of these that'll crochet for hours, and I don't want to drink, or I don't get up to go do anything, and then I get really tired and really stiff because I could sit and crochet forever, and I forget to eat even. I'm like that. But you want to do short movements also, and you want to keep your crochet close to your body. You don't want to be crocheting out here like I have to do on camera. I have to crochet out in front of me for my camera. And whenever I'm crocheting relaxed, my crochet is close to my body for short movements. The less movement, the faster you are. And so you don't want you don't want to have your arms hanging out up here and trying to crochet this way, because this part, your arms will get tired, your hands are going to get tired, your shoulders will get tired, your neck is going to get tired. So you want to be able to have that good posture. Now, the other thing I want to tell you, if you've made it this far in the video, there's certain things that I do that most people don't think about. That when I was production knitting or crocheting, I knit and crochet, but when I was doing it for production, for selling it on Etsy, and to get my stuff out as fast as I possibly could, I crocheted. I have knitting machines. My husband would do the knit hats that we sold bearded hats. My husband would do the knit hats, and he would do that on the machine, and I would crochet a hat. And my job was to do the beards and the hats, and his job was to do the knit hats, and I crocheted the hats because he can't crochet. So he would sit down and he would start, and I would race him. I would try to get a hat and a beard done in crochet before he could get the hat done on the knitting machine, and I beat him most of the time. That's how I started crocheting faster. I made a game out of it. It was like, okay, if I can get this done before him, I win. You know, I'm competitive, and so it was just that way. I need to crochet faster because I have so many orders coming in, and this was several years ago, and I crocheted for the joy of it. I did not crochet for production. Now, if there's certain things that you can do. You can time yourself and see how long it takes for you to get a row done, and say, okay, this next row, if it takes you 4 minutes to get that row done, this next row, I'm going to try to do it in 3 minutes and 50 seconds. I did that just so that I could get faster. Nobody knew I was doing it. It didn't matter to anybody else, but it was for me. I wanted to see how fast I could crochet a stitch. I wanted to see how fast I could crochet a row of whatever it was I was doing. So if you cannot be a fast crocheter, and it's okay, your pace is your pace, and that's perfectly fine. If you are not a fast crocheter, the thing that I suggest that you do is I suggest that you say, I have to get this blanket or whatever it is that you're working on, I need to get it done by a certain time. So then say it's in 2 weeks, and you know that the blanket is going to be 100 and math, I gotta do math. Your blanket needs to be 60 inches, okay? And you want it 60 inches long and however wide it's going to be, but you know that you need to do 60 inches for your deal, and you want to, let's say for easy math, you want to do it in 10 days. You know that you need to crochet 6 inches a day. 6 times 10 is 60. So you would need to crochet every day 6 inches. If you don't get that 6 inches done, it's okay. Do 7 or 8 tomorrow. Do whatever you need to do, but put yourself a goal of, I want to have this done by this time, or say there's a baby shower coming up and you know that you have a month before the baby shower is going to be there. Set a goal. I'm going to do this much at this amount of time. And the big blanket that I did, the intricate blanket that I did that you see on there, it's greens, and it's my son's wedding blanket is actually what it is. I had 3 weeks to get that done. I actually had a month to get that blanket done. And it's very intricate. It is very detailed. Whenever you really look at it, it's very, very detailed. But it took him a month in order to figure out what blanket he wanted. So I only had a month to get it done. And that's what I did. I sat down and said, okay. And as you get on that kind of a blanket, because it's done in a square, as you get further and further out, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I knew that I had to do, I can't remember how many rows it was. I had to do a certain amount of rows every day to get it done. And I gave myself 3 weeks. So in case I didn't get it done in that 3 weeks, I still had another week to get it done. And I paced myself. And by the end, I was working on it 8 hours a day. But I got it done in 3 weeks. So it can be done. You just have to pace yourself and know that, okay, these rows are going to, if it's a square, it's going to get wider and wider at the very end. And just know that you need to do more in the beginning and less at the end. But I got, that's how I did that blanket. Both of those big blankets, that I had time constraints, and I paced myself. On the zigzag ripple stitch blanket, I had, I think, a month to get that one done. And I got it done by just doing a color change a day. And I got it done way ahead of time. So there are ways to think about how do I need to get this done in a timely manner. And you can think about that also. Because it's okay to be a slow crocheter. I like to crochet slow because I feel like it's therapy for me. Never crochet whenever you are hurting, if you're angry. It can calm you down, but don't crochet on a project that you're going to give away if you're angry, because your tension one day, if you're angry, your tension's going to be really tight. And if you are relaxed, it's going to loosen up. So every day changes on your tension. So just keep that in mind also, and how you feel will also, you know, I have rheumatoid and lupus and some other things going on. And so there's days that I don't feel good and I don't feel like crocheting, but I still crochet. You know, it's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and crochet just on a project because I want to. You know, I want to crochet, but I know that I shouldn't crochet. That's when I pick up Tunisian and do my Tunisian projects, because it's not, there's tension involved, but not so bad of tension. So I hope this helped. I may do another video eventually on some more tips and tricks whenever I think about them, but I hope that helps you guys. And it's okay to crochet slow. Just know that muscle memory will, it's going to make you faster if you are consciously thinking, I need to crochet faster. I want to do a stitch a second. I want to do, you know, I want to do a double crochet in a second. And that's how I got faster, was I started racing the clock. I started racing my husband. I thought, okay, if I sit down and I want to do a hat, or a washcloth, and I sit down here and I want to have this done by the time of this podcast ends, then, or by the time this show is off the TV, or by the time this is done, or whatever, and it's a short, quick project and I didn't get it done, I didn't beat myself up about it. I just thought, okay, now by the next one, I need to have that done. And that is how you start crocheting faster. You think about it, consciously think about, okay, I need to do these stitches quicker. How can I do them? So I hope this helps. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. And I will see you on the next one.